I just want to say one thing before jumping into this video. I grew up poor, and I'm not ashamed of it. Because I remember when I was little, I'd always go to the grocery store with my mom, and she would do this thing where she'd scan over the cart and try to piece together everything that we were going to buy just to make sure that we had enough money to buy it. Now, I'll never forget these moments because when we would get to the register, I would just watch her face and see her reaction, and I know that deep down she was embarrassed. Now, at the time, I don't think I truly understood what she was going through, but as life went on, these moments showed me that I didn't want that life for her, for myself, and for my future children. So fast forward to now, I'm 26, and I've had enough time, enough experiences to look back at that little kid in that grocery store and realize that something genuinely changed how I move throughout the world. And that is, growing up broke might be the best thing that ever happened to me. Poverty certainly isn't a blessing. Growing up without money is hard. It's stressful in ways that stick with you forever. I'm not here to pretend like it was all good. But what I am here to tell you is that the life that I live handed me a set of tools that most people never get. And once I figured out how to use them, everything changed. So if you grew up like me, watching the bills pile up, watching the arguments between stressed out parents, wearing the same outfit for years on end, this video's for you. The 8 reasons why growing up poor isn't as bad as you may think. Now let's get into it. Number 1, hunger is the best motivator. I want you to think about the most motivated version of yourself, like the version of you that was locked in, laser focused, nothing could take you off your task. I bet you that version showed up when you absolutely needed something. Not when things were comfortable, but when things were tight. And that's not a coincidence because you see, humans are built. Comfort makes you soft, not because you're weak, but because your brain has no reason to push you. Why hustle when everything's fine? I grew up without that problem. Nothing was fine. And so I was always in motion, always trying to figure something out, always looking for a way up. I didn't have the luxury of coasting my way through life. And honestly, looking back, I'm grateful for that, even though I hated it at the time. You see, there's a researcher named Tom Corley, and he spent 5 years studying self-made millionaires. And he sat down with 177 of them and dug into their backgrounds. And he found that 41% of those self-made millionaires were raised in poor households, yet somehow managed to break out as adults. Nearly half. And his conclusion was that poverty, for those people, didn't break them, it built them up. Their desire to become successful drove them to transform themselves and their bloodline. So I read that and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what this is. That's exactly how I feel like I am. That's the situation that I'm currently living in. Because I've seen both sides. I have friends who grew up comfortable, good families, stable homes, never had to worry. And some of them are just absolutely incredible, successful people. But a lot of them, they just don't know what to do when things get hard. They never had to. The first time life really pushes back on them, they freeze up. They're just not used to it. But me, hard is like my factory reset. Hard is Tuesday. That's not something you learn in school. That's something that you just live. Number 2 is that you stop caring what people think. Because you see, everybody has opinions, but let them have them. Throughout my school years, I got clowned endlessly. And I know you know what I'm talking about. The wrong shoes, the off-brand backpack, not being able to go somewhere because we couldn't afford it. There was always something that reminded me and everyone around me that we weren't on the same level. And for years, honestly, well, into my teens, I let that eat away at me. I wanted the things, I wanted to fit in, I wanted people to not be able to tell I couldn't afford things. Just thinking about it, I remember a time where I would get so pissed off at my mom because she didn't buy me Heelys. I'll put a picture on the screen, I'm sure all of you have heard of Heelys, but it's those dumb shoes that have the wheel and the heel of the shoe, and you would just skate around on the Heelys. I wanted those things so goddamn bad. Everyone had them, but I didn't have them, and I felt left out, I felt secluded. But little did I realize my mom was actually doing me a favor by telling me no. Because what happened after enough times of not being able to give in to the norm of everybody, I just stopped caring. Not in a gave up kind of way, but just in a freeing way. When you don't have the latest clothes, gadgets, or cars, you either just live in shame or you learn to stop caring. And that becomes one of the biggest strengths people who grew up poor carry through their life. And I'm telling you that indifference to other people's opinions is worth more than any inheritance you could ever get. Because do you know how many people out there are living lives that they didn't choose, spending money that they don't have, staying in situations that are slowly killing them off, all because of what somebody else might think? You see, I have a friend right now. He's super smart, very talented individual, but he's been sitting on this business idea for 3 years. And you know why he hasn't moved yet? Because he's scared of what people are going to think if he fails, if shit doesn't work out. He's scared of the perception that he'll get. And I'm sitting there like, bro, I wore the same pair of shoes for 2 school years straight. Like, I really don't care what somebody says about my hustle. That fear, that's paralyzing him. I burned through that before I was even 15 years old. And that's the gift. The embarrassment was the training. You didn't just survive the judgment, you outgrew the need for approval. And once you don't need approval, you can literally do anything. Moving on to number 3, you learn what money actually is. People who grew up with money, and I say this with absolutely zero hate, but a lot of truthfulness, a lot of them have this weird relationship with it. They've never had to think about it, so they just don't think about spending money. They don't care. They spend it without thinking, they have no discipline, and when things get tight, they just panic and shut down. Because scarcity is foreign to them. I knew what a dollar was before I was 10, not because someone sat me down and taught me personal finance. I mean, quite the opposite. My family was poor. But I watched what happened when dollars ran out. I saw what it looked like when the math didn't work out and you were scrambling for a solution. I understood early that money isn't numbers, it's options. It's the difference between being able to leave a bad situation and being trapped in one. People who grew up poor naturally develop something called delayed gratification. And this is just the ability to resist short-term rewards for long-term goals. It's one of the strongest predictors of success in adulthood, and people who grew up poor develop it naturally because life taught them that there's no shortcut coming. I think about this all the time now because when I started making real money for the first time in my life, I didn't blow it. Not because I was some financial genius, but I remembered how it felt. And I remembered what it was like to not have it. And that memory that I possess is better than any budgeting tool I could ever ask for. I've watched many people get their first real paycheck and spend it in the blink of an eye. I've never been able to do that. The kid that watched his mom suffer in the grocery store wouldn't let me. Number 4 is going to be nobody's coming to save you. For a long time, I think I was waiting. I was waiting for the break. I was waiting for someone to notice me and pull me aside and say, hey, I see something in you. Let me help. And that's a story that we get fed a lot. The mentor who changes everything, the opportunity that falls in your lap. Maybe that happens for some people, but I grew up in an environment where I could look around and pretty clearly see that waiting was a losing strategy. The people who stayed in the same situation year after year were the ones waiting. The ones who got out, they stopped waiting and started moving. The self-made millionaires that you see worked hard to learn what they needed to know to become successful. Not the TikTok influencers, but the average self-made millionaires who coursed the path and went through the hardships, because you see that they perfected their skills to outperform and earn more than their competition. They didn't wait to be chosen. They made themselves undeniable. And that's the thing about investing in yourself versus investing in appearances. Because you see, when I started taking money I didn't have much of, but I started putting it into skills, into books, into courses, into getting around people who were further ahead than me, people thought I was doing too much. Meanwhile, the same people were spending that same money on things that lost value the second that they bought them. The return on investing in yourself compounds. Every skill stacks on the last one. Your knowledge doesn't depreciate. Your experience can't be repossessed from you. And the confidence that comes from genuinely getting better at something, that's not something anyone could take from you. I learned that because I had no other option. There was no backup plan. There was no trust fund waiting for me. There was no, if this doesn't work out, I'll just whatever. There was only me figuring it out. And once I accepted that and really accepted it, I stopped being scared of it and started being fueled by it. Number 5 is going to be growing up broke made you a problem solver. I want you guys to put in the comments down below, when was the last time you actually couldn't solve a problem? And really think about it. I don't mean a problem where you just were frustrated for a minute and got over it. I mean an actual dead end where you just could not figure something out. I'll bet it doesn't happen that often. And I'll bet that the reason is that growing up, you didn't have the option of buying your way out of your problems. You had to think your way out. You see, when you grow up without much money, creativity becomes a survival skill. You learn how to make dinner out of whatever's left in the pantry. You figure out how to fix things instead of replacing them. And this resourcefulness isn't just about saving money, it's about the mindset. It trains your brain to look for solutions, not excuses. I didn't realize how much that shaped me until I got into professional settings and watched how other people handled obstacles. Some people, the first time a plan doesn't work, they just shut down. They need more resources, more time, more help. They're waiting for ideal conditions to make their move. But you see, I never had these ideal conditions. Ideal conditions were never on the menu for me. So when things would go sideways, which they always seem to go sideways, I just start problem solving, not because I'm smarter, but because I've been practicing since I was a little kid. That's the thinking of an entrepreneur. And it came free, courtesy of life that didn't hand me easy solutions. Number 6 is that you can read a room better than anybody. When you grow up in an environment where tension, stress, and scarcity are constant, you learn to read people fast. You had to. I learned really early how to walk into a room and feel what was happening before anybody said a word to me. I learned how to tell when an adult was in a bad place and I needed to make myself scarce. And I also learned how to read the energy of a situation and adjust accordingly. Not because I took a course on it, but survival just simply requires it. And when I got older, I realized that skill is basically just emotional intelligence. Companies do full-day workshops trying to teach this to executives. Therapists build entire practices around this. But I got it just because of where I came from. You see, in business, the ability to read people is everything. Knowing when to push and knowing when to back off. Knowing who's actually on your team and who's performing. Knowing what someone actually wants versus what they're saying. I use that every single day. And it started in an environment most people would look at and only see a disadvantage. Number 7 is that the mindset gap is truly real. I want to share something that I read recently. I found this paper where researchers did this massive study on over 168,000 students, and it was based on poverty and how it affected academic performance. And they found something that completely flips the narrative of what we usually get, but it was that students from low-income families who had a growth mindset scored comparably to a fixed mindset student whose family earned 13 times more. All that income advantage wiped out by belief. By the simple belief that your intelligence and your abilities aren't in a fixed position. You learn that you can grow and that you're not stuck. And when I read that, something clicked for me because I used to look at people who had more than me and think that they had some advantage that I could never touch. And some of them did. I'm not perfect, but some of them did. But the gap was never as wide as I really truly thought. The biggest gap wasn't in our bank accounts, it was in our heads. The fact that you're here, that you're watching this video, thinking about this, trying to get better, tells me that your head is in the right place. And honestly, that puts you ahead than more people than you care to realize. And finally, number 8 is that risk doesn't scare you as much. Most people don't take risks because they're scared of losing what they have. But what's the fear when you started with nothing? What's the worst case scenario? You end up back at zero? I've been there. A lot of us have been there. I know how to live there. That's not a threat. That's a familiar address that I have in my mind. Growing up poor forces you to take risks in the pursuit of wealth, and overcoming the fear of taking risks becomes a habit. I think about the first time I tried something that could have embarrassed me terribly. Most people in my life thought it was a bad idea, and yeah, there was a version of it that didn't work out great, but I didn't fold. Because in my head, I kept thinking, what's the actual worst case scenario here? I've already lived worse, I'll survive it, I did before, I will now. The math doesn't work the same way for someone who grew up protected from failure. They see a risk and they see the potential loss of something, and then it usually turns them away. But you see, for me, I see the risk and I see a problem and I already know how to survive with it, so why not try it? So just to wrap everything up, I want to come back to where I started this video. That little kid in the grocery store, just straight up embarrassed, wanting a different life for myself and my mother. To this day, I still think about him, and I feel something for him that took me a long time to figure out wasn't pity, but it was actually respect. Because that kid had no idea what he was building. Every time he went without something, he was building discipline. Every time he got judged, he kept going. Every time he watched his family navigate impossible situations with almost nothing, he was learning problem solving, emotional intelligence, and resilience all at once, without ever setting foot in a classroom for it. That kid was being built into a success, and he didn't even know it at the time. That's you. That was you. And if you're still in it right now, if things are still hard, still tight, and still not where you want them to be, just know that this is a part of it. This isn't a detour from your story, this is your story. And where you came from isn't somewhere that you run from. It's something to build with, because you see, poverty can either beat you down or it can make you stronger. The fact that you're still standing tells me everything that I need to know about which one it did to you. Now go and do something with that. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing, leaving a like, and I appreciate you guys for watching the video. But until next time, peace.